If you'd like to, please subscribe. It helps me out a lot. I post every Wednesday. Hey everyone, my name is Catherine and thank you so much for clicking on this video today. So I can't believe I'm doing this, but it is already December 2023, which means that 2024 is around the corner, and I wanted to do a little wrap-up review video of all the travel that I've done this year, and some people have requested for me to rate my EF trips as well, so I thought it'd be fitting to do in this video. So let's get into it. I'm just going to look down at my notebook because I made a list of my travels, and I will mention all of them, but I will also mostly focus on my EF and international ones. And the reason why I've been able to do so much travel, by the way, just a little disclaimer, is I'm in this unique situation where I don't have anyone to care for right now. I like to say I'm in between pets because my dog sadly passed earlier this year. I also use travel as a way to make myself feel better. I'm also in between jobs, and job hunting is taking longer than I thought it would, so that's great. But I had a job up until like March of this year or so. I thought, you know, I love to travel and I don't have work right now. I'm looking actively and I don't need to care for anyone. So knowing eventually I will get another pet and hopefully get another job too, although it's like, just, you know, not the funnest to job hunt, but that is why I've really made the most of my time by traveling. So I rang in the new year this year in Miami because my family loves Miami. We're from Seattle, but I rang in the new year, and then in March, late March, like days after my contract ended, I did a Hawaii trip with my parents. And then in April, I went to DC because that's where I went to grad school with one of my friends I did grad school with. And we went around in Virginia a little bit. We saw like the Shenandoah National Park. It wasn't the best time to see it because you should really go in the fall, but it was still cool. And then we got to go to DC as well and see like friends that are still there and do all the things and eat at all the restaurants that we used to love eating at when we lived there. So that was a fun throwback. After that really started my EF travels. So I did a lot of back-to-back trips just because I had the time. And if you're going to a region of the world, why go back and forth and like just extend it and make the most of it? So I did South Korea and Japan in May. South Korea was like my top #1 destination that I wanted to go to out of everything. I just love like East Asia specifically, and EF had announced it earlier that year, and I actually went on their very first South Korea trip that they'd done. It was an ambassador trip, which just means that only ambassadors can go on these trips, and they're usually smaller and they're a bit discounted as well. The kind of gist is that it's discounted, but you're expected to like make content and advertise for EF, so it's kind of a little trade-off, and then you can network with ambassadors. So I did South Korea, and then I did it with also Japan, just a normal EF Japan trip, the highlights of Japan 2-week trip. I'd been to Japan before with semester at sea when I studied abroad, but I was only there for like 5 days, and there's just so much to do in Japan, so I really did want to go back and do all the things that I wasn't able to do because I'd only been to Tokyo and Kyoto. That is on the itinerary for EF, and I loved those places. I mean, Tokyo is the most populated city in the world, so having the 2 days that I was there is not enough. So seeing more of Tokyo. I also loved Kyoto. It's such a beautiful place that has a really good mix of like old and new, and then everything else was brand new to me, so I absolutely loved that trip. I then did another short family trip to Las Vegas in June, and then in July I did Colombia and Peru with EF Ultimate Break, and Peru was my #1 South America country that I wanted to go to. I thought because I have, again, the time and stuff like that to pair it with another trip, I looked at really any of the South America trips that EF does besides Ecuador, because I did that in 2022, and saw which one best aligns with the Peru trip that I wanted to do in July, and Colombia aligned best. That was really cool to be able to do those two because I did not really expect or plan to go to Colombia, but it was very fun and amazing and surprising just because it sometimes has not the best stereotypes, but I loved it. And Peru was amazing as well. And then in August I did Kenya, which I've been wanting to go to East Africa and go on a safari, especially in like Kenya or Tanzania, which EF just does Kenya as of now trips, and it was a ambassador trip as well, and I was so excited. It was like the biggest ambassador trip that EF has ever had, and it's just like the size of a regular trip, I would say, but usually ambassador trips are smaller, so the fact that so many ambassadors went was pretty cool. Those were the trips that I did in this year, and now I'm going to rate the trips. So I saw Mia's comments that asked if I could rate all my EF trips. I would say, at least for this year, it was hard to pick, it really was, but I think my number one would be Japan, even though I really wanted to do South Korea. If I had to choose one trip to do this year, it would have been South Korea, and I still think that is true because I'd never been, and Korean culture is just like becoming so prevalent everywhere in the US, from like Korean barbecue and Korean food in general to K-pop to skincare. But I think my number one is still Japan, because usually EF trips are like a week to 10 days, but this one was 2 weeks long, so you got to see a lot more of it. There's various versions of their Japan trips, but I did the longer 2-week one, and I feel like you just got to see a lot of Japan. I got to have a decent amount of time in Tokyo, and we also got like tours in Tokyo, and then you had like optional excursions like a sushi making class, but then you also had a lot of solo time, which for me was dangerous because I kept going to like the Pokemon centers and the Nintendo stores and just shopping, and I spent a lot of money. Then also going to like Kyoto was really fun, and there's like this one hike that we did that I'm spacing on the name of, but it has all these orange arches, and orange is like a color that means good luck in Japanese culture. I just think Kyoto is so cool. It's probably my favorite city in Japan. And then we got to go to Osaka, which is a major city as well, but I'd never been, and that's where Universal Studios is. That's where Nintendo World is located. We also got to go to a temple and stay the night, which was pretty cool. It was very original. It was like mats on the ground and like bamboo style, and I did like meditation with monks at like 5 in the morning. It was just like one of those moments I remember. I was like, what is my life? I'm with monks in Japan at like 5 a.m. You get to really see so much from the original Japanese culture and getting to know a lot more about Buddhism and everything. And you see so many temples, by the way, when you're with EF, so that's amazing. To then like seeing the high-tech culture of Tokyo, which is probably the most advanced city in the world. So I just found it to be so cool. So that would be my first choice. And then my second would be South Korea. I just love that part of the world. We were in Seoul. We went to Jeongju, which is a temple stay as well that we did similar to Japan, but a more intense, heightened version of it. And then we also went to Busan, which I would say most people's favorite city was Busan. I loved Busan. It is a big city with skyscrapers, but it's on the beach, which you don't usually, at least with me, I don't think like beach life with Korea, but it was really cool to be able to see that. And then with Jeongju, that was quite an experience. We were there for, I think it was only one night, honestly, but because we were there for like one whole day and then a night and then the next whole day because it was an early start, we got to do a lot of different things. We ate vegan the whole time we were there. Then we got to do a bowing ceremony with a monk where we bowed 108 times. It was quite something. You get like this string and then you get beads and then you bow, and when you're down on your bow you put a bead on the necklace and then you go up, and then there's like a clapping motion or whatever, and then you go back down and you put a bead, and you do that over and over and over again. And I did have bruises on my knee the next day. But they had like a cushion, but still it's like over and over again. And obviously if you're not like capable of doing that, like someone on my trip had bad knees, she did not do the bowing. She just kind of participated on the ground. Quite a unique experience. And then Seoul itself was just really amazing as well. So I really liked South Korea, and I would say those are my top two for sure. And then for number 3, I'll actually say Kenya. I really liked Kenya. Usually EF trips are very active and go, 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 and some more than others, obviously, and it says on the website like moderate, high, low, whatever activity level. But Kenya was pretty low, which was nice, especially because at that point it was my 5th trip of the year and just tiring. So if you're somebody that has limited mobility or wants to go on a more chill trip, I guess I would say, it's not quite chill, any of them, but like one where you don't have to like go as much and there's not as much walking, Kenya is a good option because the majority of the trip you are in these jeeps and then viewing animals in safaris, and you're not allowed to leave the jeeps legally because these are open wildlife safaris. Like there's lions, there's hippos, there's all the animals that is known for that part of the world. So I found it to be really fun. And then the roofs will like pop up so you can stand as well and view out. I also just love animals so much. So being able to see so many different animals was really incredible. And there's the big 5, which is just like the big 5 that everyone tries to see with like different types of animals, and one of them is the leopard, and they're notorious for being like one of the hardest animals to spot. And my trip, because we were separated by jeeps because each jeep could only hold like 6 people in addition to the driver, or 7, my jeep was the only one that saw a leopard. I'm still so happy that happened. It was so cool. But I guess it's also different than other trips because with other EF trips there's usually one bus and you're all in that one bus and go from place to place. Except in South Korea, we had one van, but we were also a tiny group. We were like 6 people, I think, which is very abnormal and never is probably going to happen again. But it was just to see how the trip went with us ambassadors before it was like official to the public. When it came to Kenya, you aren't on a bus, you are on jeeps the entire time, even when you're in the city of Nairobi. And I actually thought it was really cool. I heard mixed reviews of what people thought. Some people didn't like it as much because you couldn't meet everyone as well. But then some people did really like it because you got to form a really tight connection with the people on your Jeep. And you could move around, but they preferred you not to, just for keeping things organized and everything. But my group and I, we got pretty close. Honestly, it sometimes felt like we were having therapy sessions in the Jeep from going from city to city. But yeah, it was pretty cool. So I would say Kenya is my number 3. And then for number 4, I would say Peru, because that was my number 1 country that I wanted to go to in South America, and Machu Picchu. And I have a friend who's Peruvian and she's made me really excited about Peruvian culture and the food and ceviche and all the things. So I really did like Peru as my number 4. And then number 5, I will say Colombia. And if you went on my Colombia trip with me, this is not to be offensive, I'm so sorry. I will say the people that I met in Colombia was some of my favorite like EF people group that I've had. So I'm just rating it based on the country, but I've made some really good friends on my Colombia trip, so that's like higher up when it comes to the people that I met, and I'd love to travel with them again. So we'll see. But as for Colombia, it just is on the lower end because I wasn't planning on going to Colombia. It just like happened to happen, but it was also like really surprising at the same time of how much I enjoyed it. Not that I went in expecting to not, but I just went into it not knowing much at all. Like I hear the stereotypes of Colombia and that it might not be the safest and this and that, but I trust EF and I'm like, if they're doing a tour there, then it's safe enough to travel to. But also I'm in a tour group, I'm not traveling solo. So I just loved the food there. I loved like the culture, the vibrant colors and everything, like walking down the alleyways and seeing the wall mural art. I would say that's my rating system for those guys, and I still recommend all those trips so much. As for like rating all my EF trips, because I don't know if this comment from Mia asked for all my trips, because that'd be hard because I've been going on EF trips since 2015. I did take a break for a few years because of COVID, and also like when I was, getting like in college and like grad school and stuff like that. I started out doing a lot of Europe trips, and I know a lot of people say if you've traveled a bit, you can do Europe on your own to not do with EF, but if you still want an organized tour group, and if you've never obviously traveled beforehand, I still really recommend them. And then I also did Ecuador and Costa Rica last year, which is so high up there as well. So that's really hard for me to pick. So I don't know. If I had to choose, I would do Japan, South Korea, Kenya, Peru. Actually, wait. Okay, just see, I'm struggling. Japan, South Korea, Kenya, Ecuador and the Galapagos, Peru, Costa Rica, Colombia, and then all my EF trips that were in Europe, just because you could do them anywhere. And I don't want to say Europe is generic, but I've just been really into doing like all the other parts of the world because I've seen so much of Europe. My family lives in Europe, so I visit them a lot. It might be kind of hard to start rating the Europe trips. Maybe if I had to choose like a top one, the highlights of Eastern Europe is up there for me. But then my first EF trip was the European road trip, which has changed quite a bit since I went in 2015, like schedule wise. That one, if you want a general start or intro to Europe, the European road trip is really cool. If you want to go in with a bang, Ultimate Europe is like 35 days. I can only imagine how exhausting that is. So that's kind of my overview on my year in travel and rating my EF trips. So let me know what you did this year, where you traveled to or where you hope to travel to. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video of mine.